I'm Lisa Adams, 29, a senior marketing director at a prestigious Manhattan advertising firm. Once considered the family disappointment, I've built myself into a polished professional with an eye for detail and a carefully guarded heart. The champagne flute slipped from my fingers the moment I saw him. Crystal shattered against marble, sending golden liquid across my Louboutin heels, but I couldn't move.
Couldn't breathe.
The sound of expensive glass breaking should have drawn attention in the pristine hotel lobby, but the wedding guests were too busy admiring the ice sculptures and discussing my sister's fairy tale romance to notice me standing frozen by the entrance. Before I go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you're hooked already, a like and subscribe will keep these stories coming. The scent of white roses and vanilla candles filled the air, sickeningly sweet, mixing with the sharp tang of spilled Dom Perignon at my feet. Everything about this place screamed perfection, from the hand-painted ceiling murals to the string quartet playing softly in the corner. It was exactly the kind of wedding Sarah had dreamed about since we were children, back when she still let me play dress-up with her, back when she still called me her sister. I pressed my back against the cool marble wall, hoping to blend into the shadows, but my emerald dress, chosen specifically because Sarah always said green made me look sallow, felt like a beacon. My hands trembled as I reached for my clutch, fingers fumbling for the invitation I'd kept folded in my wallet for 3 months. The paper was soft now, worn from being touched too many times, the elegant script reading, "Sarah Elizabeth Morrison and James Michael Chun request your presence." She'd kept our maiden name off the invitation. Of course she had. "Excuse me, miss?" A server appeared beside me, concern creasing his young face. "Are you all right? Can I get you another drink?" I shook my head, not trusting my voice. Through the archway leading to the main ballroom, I could see her. Sarah, radiant in ivory silk and French lace, her auburn hair swept into an elaborate updo that probably cost more than most people's rent. She was laughing at something her maid of honor was whispering, her hand resting protectively on her barely visible bump. She was pregnant. The invitation hadn't mentioned that detail. My throat constricted as memories flooded back. Sarah at 16, crying in my arms after her first heartbreak, making me promise we'd always be each other's maid of honor. Sarah at 20, defending me when our parents suggested I skip family Christmas because my presence made everyone uncomfortable. Sarah at 25, standing in our childhood kitchen, her face twisted with disgust as she said the words that still echoed in my nightmares. "You're not my sister anymore. You're nothing to me." The server was still hovering, probably wondering if I was about to faint or cause a scene. I managed a weak smile and stepped carefully around the broken glass, my heels clicking against the marble as I moved deeper into the lobby. The sound seemed unnaturally loud, like gunshots in a cathedral. I shouldn't have come. This was a mistake, a massive, humiliating mistake that would only give my family more ammunition. But the invitation had been hand-delivered to my office, my full name written in Sarah's careful script. After 11 years of silence, she'd reached out. That had to mean something, didn't it? The ballroom doors were open now, guests flowing in for the ceremony. I caught glimpses of familiar faces, cousins who'd blocked my number, family friends who'd chosen sides, my parents' neighbors who'd whispered about me for years. None of them noticed me yet, but they would. In a town like Millbrook, the return of the family disgrace wouldn't go unnoticed for long. I was about to turn and leave, to save myself the inevitable humiliation, when I saw him. James Chun stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his dark hair styled just the way it had been in college. He was older now, more distinguished, with a kind of confidence that came from success and social acceptance. But his smile was the same, warm and genuine, the smile that had made me believe in fairy tales once upon a time. The smile he'd given me the night before he chose my sister instead. My chest tightened as I watched him adjust his cufflinks, the same nervous habit he'd had during finals week. He looked happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy in a way I'd never seen him before. The way he'd never looked when he was with me. "Lisa?" The voice behind me was soft, uncertain. I turned slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs, and found myself face to face with my mother. Margaret Morrison looked exactly the same. Silver hair in a perfect chignon, pearls at her throat, disappointment etched into every line of her face. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, glancing around nervously. Sarah didn't, she wouldn't have. She invited me. The words came out stronger than I felt. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the invitation, holding it like a shield between us. My mother's face went pale. Her manicured fingers reached for the paper, but I pulled it back. "That's impossible. Sarah would never." "Never what, Mother? Never forgive me? Never want her sister at her wedding?" The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. "Or never risk having the family embarrassment ruin her perfect day?" "Lisa, please." My mother's voice cracked slightly. "Not here. Not today." But I was already walking away, pushing through the crowd toward the ballroom. I could feel her eyes on my back, could practically hear her mental calculations about damage control and social standing. Some things never changed. The ceremony was about to begin. Guests were taking their seats, the string quartet transitioning into something soft and romantic. I slipped into the back row, choosing an aisle seat in case I needed to make a quick escape. The woman next to me, someone's elderly aunt, judging by her elaborate hat, gave me a curious look but said nothing. The music swelled, and Sarah appeared at the back of the aisle on our father's arm. She was breathtaking, absolutely luminous, and for a moment I forgot about everything else. This was my little sister, the girl who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms, who'd made me friendship bracelets every summer at camp, who'd once told me I was the most beautiful person in the world. Before she learned what the world really thought of me, Sarah's eyes swept the crowd as she walked, acknowledging guests with gracious nods and radiant smiles. When her gaze reached the back row, it stopped. Our eyes met across the sea of wedding guests, and I watched her face transform. The smile faltered. Her step hesitated. For just a moment, she looked like the scared little girl who used to have nightmares, and I wanted nothing more than to run to her, to hold her, to tell her everything would be okay. But then her expression hardened. Her chin lifted with the Morrison pride I knew so well, and she looked away, continuing down the aisle as if I didn't exist. As if I'd never existed at all. The ceremony passed in a blur of vows and rings and promises of forever. I watched James's face as he said, "I do," saw the way he looked at Sarah like she was his entire world. It should have hurt more than it did. Maybe I was finally healing, or maybe I was just numb. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the crowd erupted in applause. James kissed Sarah with the kind of passion that made people believe in love, and I found myself clapping along with everyone else, genuinely happy for them despite everything. The recessional music began, and the new Mr. and Mrs. Chin started back down the aisle. As they passed my row, James's eyes found mine. He stumbled slightly, his face going white with shock, but Sarah's grip on his arm kept him moving. I waited until most of the guests had filed out before standing. My legs felt unsteady, and I gripped the back of the pew for support. The elderly woman beside me was gathering her things, muttering about the heat and her arthritis. "Lovely ceremony," she said to me conversationally. "Do you know the family well?" I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came. "How do you explain that you're the sister who doesn't exist? The family member who'd been erased from photos and Christmas cards and wedding invitations?" "I used to. I finally managed." The woman nodded sympathetically. "Families can be complicated, dear. But love always finds a way." If only that were true. I was making my way toward the exit when a hand grabbed my arm. I turned to find James standing behind me, his face a mixture of shock and something else I couldn't identify. "Lisa." My name sounded strange in his voice after all these years. "I can't believe. What are you doing here?" Before I could answer, Sarah appeared at his side. Up close, she was even more beautiful, pregnancy giving her skin a luminous glow. But her eyes were cold as winter when they met mine. "James, we need to get to the reception. The photographer is waiting." "Sarah, it's Lisa." James's voice was soft, almost wondering. "She's here." "I can see that." Sarah's tone could have frozen champagne. "The question is why." I held up the invitation again. my hand surprisingly steady. You invited me. Sarah's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, anger, and something that might have been fear. I didn't send that. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I said I didn't send that invitation. Sarah's voice was getting louder, drawing attention from nearby guests. I would never. Then who did? The question came out as a whisper. James was looking between us, clearly lost. Other guests were starting to stare, sensing drama. I could see my parents across the room, my father's face red with embarrassment, my mother frantically whispering to someone who was probably already spreading the gossip. Sarah stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. I don't know who sent that, but you need to leave.
Now.
Before you ruin everything like you always do. The words were like a slap, but I stood my ground. I'm not here to cause trouble, Sarah. I just wanted.
What?
To what? Her composure was cracking, the perfect bride facade slipping. To remind everyone of our family's shame? To make my wedding day about you? To see my sister get married? The words came out broken, raw with 11 years of pain. To hope that enough time had passed. Time doesn't change what you are. Sarah's voice was ice-cold now, each word carefully chosen to wound. Time doesn't make you normal. The ballroom seemed to tilt around me. Conversations were stopping, heads turning our way. I could feel the weight of dozens of stares, the whispered speculation beginning. James was looking at Sarah with something like horror. Sarah, what are you? Stay out of this, James. Sarah's eyes never left mine. This is family business. I am family, I said quietly. I'm your sister.
No.
Sarah's voice carried across the suddenly quiet ballroom. You're not. You stopped being my sister the day you chose to be a freak. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat, could smell the roses and vanilla and the lingering scent of champagne. Somewhere in the crowd, someone gasped. James was staring at his new wife like he'd never seen her before. Sarah, you can't. But I was already walking away, my heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. I made it to the lobby before the tears started, made it to the parking garage before the sobs began. I sat in my rental car for 20 minutes, crying 11 years' worth of tears, before I finally started the engine. As I pulled out of the garage, I caught a glimpse of someone in my rearview mirror, a figure in a dark suit, watching from the hotel entrance. But when I looked again, they were gone. I was halfway back to the city when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The invitation was just the beginning. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at noon if you want answers about who really sent it. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as I pulled over to read the message again. Someone had orchestrated this entire disaster, had deliberately brought me back into Sarah's life on her wedding day. But who?
And why?
The coffee in my hands had gone cold an hour ago, but I kept gripping the cup like an anchor. Riverside Park stretched out before me, autumn leaves dancing in the October breeze, joggers and dog walkers creating a peaceful tableau that felt surreal after yesterday's disaster. I'd barely slept, replaying Sarah's words over and over, the venom in her voice when she called me a freak echoing in my mind until I wanted to scream. A woman pushing a stroller smiled at me as she passed, and I wondered what she saw. Just another professional enjoying her lunch break. Or could she somehow sense the wreckage beneath my carefully applied makeup? I'd chosen my outfit deliberately this morning. Navy blazer, cream silk blouse, understated jewelry. Armor disguised as business attire. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Red bench by the fountain.
Come alone.
My pulse quickened as I scanned the area. The fountain was 50 yards away, surrounded by benches painted in the park's signature burgundy. Only one was occupied, a figure in a long coat, face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat and oversized sunglasses. Even from this distance, something about their posture seemed familiar. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady after sitting motionless for so long. The walk to the fountain felt endless, each step bringing me closer to answers I wasn't sure I wanted. The mysterious figure didn't look up as I approached, didn't acknowledge my presence until I was standing directly in front of the bench. Sit down, Lisa. The voice made my blood freeze. I knew that voice, had heard it in my nightmares for 11 years. Slowly, the figure raised her head, removing the sunglasses to reveal eyes I'd inherited, a face that had once been the most beautiful thing in my world. "Hello, sweetheart. Aunt Catherine." The name came out as a whisper. "You're supposed to be dead." My father's sister smiled, the same sad, knowing smile I remembered from childhood. She looked older, of course, silver threading through her dark hair, lines around her eyes that spoke of years spent hiding. But she was unmistakably alive, unmistakably here. "Sit," she said again, patting the bench beside her. "We have a lot to discuss." I remained standing, my mind reeling. "They said you died in a car accident. In Europe. There was a funeral." "There was a memorial service," Catherine corrected gently. "No body to bury, remember? Very convenient for someone who needed to disappear." "Why?" The question exploded out of me. "Why would you fake your own death? Why would you let us think?" "Because staying meant watching them destroy you the same way they destroyed me." Catherine's voice was quiet but fierce. "Because I was a coward who ran instead of fighting." I sank onto the bench, my legs finally giving out. "You sent the invitation." "I did. But why? Why bring me back just to watch Sarah humiliate me again?" Catherine turned to face me fully, and I saw tears in her eyes. "Because I've been watching from the shadows for 11 years, Lisa. Watching you build a life, become successful, become everything they said you'd never be. And I've been watching your family pretend you never existed." The fountain beside us bubbled peacefully, children's laughter echoing from the playground nearby. Normal sounds of a normal day, while my world tilted off its axis. "I don't understand," I said. "If you've been watching, if you've been alive this whole time, why didn't you contact me? Do you have any idea what it was like losing you right after? Right after they threw you out?" Catherine's voice was bitter. "Yes, I know exactly what it was like. Because they did the same thing to me 25 years ago." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? Did you really think you were the first Morrison to disappoint the family?" Catherine laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The first to be different? To love someone the family deemed inappropriate." My mind raced, trying to process this revelation. "You're
Gay, yes.
just like you." Catherine reached into her purse and pulled out a worn photograph. "This is Elena. We were together for 3 years before your parents found out." I stared at the photo, Catherine, young and radiant, her arm around a beautiful Latina woman with kind eyes and a brilliant smile. They looked happy, completely in love, the way I'd once dreamed of looking with someone. "What happened to her?" "Your father happened." Catherine's voice turned cold. "He had her deported, made up some story about visa violations, used his connections to have her sent back to Mexico. I never saw her again. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Dad did that." The Morrison family has a long history of making problems disappear, Lisa. Elena was a problem. I was a problem. And when you came out... Catherine shrugged. "Well, you know how that story ends." I thought about my father, the man who taught me to ride a bike and helped with my homework, who'd also stood silent while my mother packed my bags and told me I was no longer welcome in their home. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. "So you faked your death." "I had help. Elena's brother worked for a shipping company, had connections. It wasn't hard to disappear in the chaos after September 11th, so many records lost, so much confusion. I became Catherine Martinez, started over in Portland." "And you've been there ever since?" Catherine nodded. "Built a life. Opened a bookstore. Found love again, eventually. But I never stopped thinking about you, never stopped regretting that I left you to face them alone." A jogger passed by, earbuds in, completely oblivious to the family drama unfolding on the park bench. I envied him his simple concerns, pace, distance, the burn in his lungs. Uncomplicated problems, with straightforward solutions. "Why now?" I asked. "Why bring me back to Sarah's wedding? Why put me through that?" Catherine's expression hardened. "Because I wanted them to see what they'd lost." I wanted Sarah to see the successful, beautiful woman her sister had become. I wanted your parents to confront the consequences of their choices. It backfired spectacularly. Did it? Catherine tilted her head, studying my face. Tell me, what did you see in James's eyes when Sarah called you a freak? I thought back to the wedding, to the horror and disgust on James's face, not directed at me, but at his new wife.
He looked shocked.
Disgusted with her, not me.
Exactly.
And what about the other guests? Did they look at you with pity, or did they look at Sarah with judgment? I considered this. The whispers had started, yes, but they hadn't been about me. They'd been about Sarah's cruelty, about the bride who'd publicly humiliated her own sister on her wedding day. You're saying this was all planned? That you wanted Sarah to react that way? I hoped she might have grown up, might have learned compassion. But I suspected she hadn't. Catherine's smile was grim. The Morrison pride runs deep, and Sarah always was Daddy's little princess. I knew there was a good chance she'd show her true colors. And if she had been kind, if she'd welcomed me back, then I would have been thrilled to be wrong. Catherine reached over and took my hand. But either way, you needed to know the truth about who sent that invitation. You needed to know you weren't alone. Her hand was warm, real, alive. For 11 years, I'd mourned her loss almost as much as I'd mourned my family's rejection. She'd been the one person who'd understood me, who'd made me feel normal and loved and accepted. I missed you so much, I whispered, tears finally spilling over. When they said you were dead, I thought I'd lost the only person who really knew me. Oh, sweetheart. Catherine pulled me into a hug, and I breathed in her familiar scent, lavender and vanilla, the same perfume she'd worn when I was a child. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I left you alone with them. We sat there for a long time, holding each other while the world continued around us. Eventually, Catherine pulled back, wiping tears from both our faces. There's something else, she said. Something you need to know about yesterday. My stomach clenched. What? James came looking for you after you left. What do you mean? I was watching from the hotel bar. After you drove away, he came out to the parking garage. He looked frantic, like he was trying to catch up with you. I thought about the figure I'd glimpsed in my rearview mirror. That was him. I think so. And Lisa. Catherine hesitated. I don't think he knew. About you and Sarah, about what happened 11 years ago. The way he looked at her after she called you that name. I think he was seeing his wife clearly for the first time. The implications of this hit me slowly. You think their marriage is in trouble? I think James Chun is a good man who just discovered he married someone capable of cruelty he never imagined. Whether that destroys their marriage or not. Catherine shrugged. That's up to them. My phone buzzed again. This time, the number wasn't unknown, it was James. Lisa, please call me. I need to talk to you. There are things about yesterday about Sarah that you need to know. I showed Catherine the message, and she raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing. Should I call him back? That depends. Are you ready to hear what he has to say? Because something tells me it's going to change everything. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the call button. Yesterday, I'd thought I was attending my sister's wedding. Today, I discovered my supposedly dead aunt was alive and had orchestrated the whole thing. What other revelations could this week possibly hold? There's one more thing, Catherine said quietly, about the invitation. I didn't just send one to you. What do you mean? I sent one to Elena too. She's been living in San Diego for the past 15 years. Married, has kids now, but... Catherine's voice trailed off. But what? She's coming to New York.
Tomorrow.
She wants to see me. The world seemed to spin around me. After all these years. After all these years. Catherine's smile was tremulous, hopeful, terrified. 25 years of wondering, what if, and now. Now you get to find out. We both do. About second chances, about forgiveness, about whether some wounds can actually heal. I looked at my phone again, at James's message waiting for a response. Then I looked at Catherine, This woman who'd been dead to me for 11 years and was now offering me a chance at understanding, at family, at truth. Call him, Catherine said softly. Whatever he has to say, you deserve to hear it. And Lisa? Yeah. Whatever happens next, you're not alone anymore. You have me, and I'm not going anywhere this time. I pressed the call button before I could lose my nerve. The phone rang once, twice. Lisa? James's voice was rough, like he'd been crying. Thank God. I wasn't sure you'd call back. What do you want, James? To apologize. To explain. To tell you things about your family that you need to know. He paused, and I could hear traffic in the background. Can we meet? Please? There's so much you don't understand about yesterday, about Sarah, about why she what? Why she publicly humiliated me at her own wedding. Why she's been lying to me for 3 years about having a sister. The words hit me like a thunderbolt. What did you say? Sarah told me you were dead, Lisa. She said you died in a car accident when you were 18. I had no idea you existed until yesterday. The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering onto the bench. Catherine caught it, holding it to her ear. James? This is Catherine Morrison, Lisa's aunt. I think you'd better start from the beginning. The coffee shop James had chosen was small and intimate, tucked away on a quiet side street in the village. I arrived first, choosing a corner table where I could see the entrance, my hands wrapped around a mug of tea I couldn't bring myself to drink. Catherine had offered to come with me, but this was something I needed to face alone. When James walked in, he looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes that spoke of a night spent questioning everything he thought he knew about his life. He spotted me immediately and made his way over, moving like someone walking through a minefield. When he reached the table, he hesitated, as if unsure whether he was welcome to sit. Thank you for coming, he said quietly, settling into the chair across from me. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. I studied his face, looking for traces of the boy I'd once loved, the man who'd chosen my sister over me. You said Sarah told you I was dead. James nodded, running a hand through his hair. 3 years ago, when we first started dating seriously, I asked about her family and she mentioned having a sister who died young. Car accident, she said. Very tragic, too painful to talk about. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. And you never questioned it? Why would I? People don't lie about things like that. James's voice was bitter. At least, I didn't think they did. A barista called out someone's order, the sound sharp in the quiet cafe. I watched James fidget with his wedding ring, twisting it around his finger like it was burning him. When did you find out the truth? Last night. After the reception. James's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I confronted Sarah about what happened at the wedding, about the way she treated you. I told her it was unacceptable, that she needed to apologize. And she laughed. She actually laughed and said you deserved worse. James looked up at me, his eyes filled with a pain I recognized. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. So I pressed her, demanded to know what could possibly justify treating her own sister that way. I felt my chest tighten. What did she tell you? The truth. Finally. James's hands clenched into fists on the table. She told me you were gay, that your parents had disowned you, that the family had cut you off completely. She said it like it was the most natural thing in the world, like of course they would reject their own daughter for being different. The words hung between us like a physical presence. I'd imagined this conversation so many times over the years. What I would say if James ever learned the truth, how I would explain what had happened between us. But now that the moment was here, I found myself speechless. Lisa, James said softly, I need you to know that if I had understood what was really happening back then, if I had known why you were pulling away from me, you would have what? The question came out sharper than I intended. Stayed with a gay girl out of pity. I would have been your friend. His voice was fierce, certain. I would have supported you. I would have told you that who you loved didn't change who you were to me. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I blinked them back. But you still would have chosen Sarah. James was quiet for a long moment, staring down at his hands. "I don't know," he said finally. "Maybe."
Probably.
I was 22 and stupid, and thought love was supposed to be easy. But I would never have let you face it alone. I wasn't alone. I had Catherine, your aunt who died in the car accident. James looked confused. Sarah mentioned her once, said it was another family tragedy. Catherine didn't die. She faked her death to escape the family after they destroyed her life for being gay too. I watched James's face cycle through shock, confusion, and dawning horror. She's the one who sent me the wedding invitation. She's been alive this whole time. Jesus Christ. James slumped back in his chair. How many lies has Sarah told me? Probably more than you want to know. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of revelations settling between us. Outside, the city continued its relentless pace, people hurrying past the window with their own dramas and secrets. I envied them their uncomplicated Monday afternoons. "There's something else," James said eventually. "Something that happened after I confronted Sarah last night." My stomach clenched.
What?
"She's not pregnant." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What do you mean?" "I mean she's been lying about that too. The whole thing was fake. Padding, hormones to fake the symptoms, even fake ultrasound photos." James's voice was hollow, defeated. "She admitted it when I threatened to leave. Said she knew I wanted kids, and thought if she could just get pregnant for real after we were married." I stared at him, trying to process this latest betrayal. "She faked a pregnancy to trap you into marriage." Apparently. And when I asked why she felt the need to lie about something so fundamental, James met my eyes. "She said it was because she knew I was still in love with you." The cafe seemed to tilt around me. "That's ridiculous. We haven't spoken in 11 years. Haven't we?" James pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. "Lisa, I've been following your career for years. I know about your promotion to senior marketing director. I know about the campaign you created for the Children's Literacy Foundation. I know you won the Advertising Excellence Award last year." My mouth went dry. "How do you know all that?" "Because I've been Googling you obsessively since college. Because I never stopped wondering what happened to you, why you disappeared so suddenly." James's voice cracked slightly. "Because Sarah was right. I never got over you." The admission hung in the air between us, dangerous and electric. I thought about the boy I'd loved at 21. The man who'd broken my heart by choosing my sister, the stranger sitting across from me now with pain in his eyes and truth on his lips. "James," I said carefully, "you just got married yesterday. To a woman who's been lying to me about everything that matters. To someone who could look at her own sister with that much hatred and feel justified." James leaned forward, his voice urgent. "Lisa, I know this is insane timing. I know how this looks, but I need you to know." "Stop." I held up a hand, my heart racing. "Just stop. You don't get to do this." "Do what?" "Show up in my life after 11 years and tell me you never got over me. Not now. Not like this." I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "You made your choice, James. You chose her." "I chose wrong." He stood too, reaching for my hand. "Lisa, please."
No.
I pulled away from his touch. "You don't get to decide you chose wrong just because you found out who Sarah really is. You don't get to use me as your escape route from a marriage you regret. That's not what this is." "Isn't it?" I grabbed my purse, needing to get out of this cafe, away from his desperate eyes and dangerous words. "You want to know the truth, James? I spent years wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to tell you I was gay before you started dating Sarah. If I trusted you with the truth instead of pushing you away. And now you know I would have supported you. Now I know it wouldn't have mattered." The words came out fierce, final. "Because the moment things got difficult, the moment loving me became complicated, you would have found someone easier. Someone who fit into your perfect life without requiring you to take a stand." James flinched like I'd slapped him. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you fighting for our friendship when I started pulling away. Fair would have been you asking questions instead of just moving on to my sister. Fair would have been you not marrying someone you suspected was lying to you about fundamental things. You're right. His voice was barely a whisper. You're absolutely right. I was a coward then, and I'm being a coward now. The fight went out of me as suddenly as it had come. I looked at this man I'd once loved, this broken stranger wearing my ex-boyfriend's face, and felt nothing but exhaustion. James, I said softly, I forgive you.
For all of it.
But forgiveness doesn't mean I'm going to help you fix the mess you've made of your life. What am I supposed to do? The question was raw, desperate. How do I go back to her after everything I know now? That's not my problem to solve. I headed for the door, then paused, looking back at him one last time. But if you want some advice, stop running from difficult conversations. Stop choosing the easy path. And maybe, just maybe, try being honest with yourself about what you really want. I left him standing there in the cafe, surrounded by the wreckage of his carefully constructed life. Outside, the October air was crisp and clean, washing away the suffocating weight of the past hour. I pulled out my phone and called Catherine. How did it go? She asked without preamble. About as well as you'd expect. Sarah's been lying about everything, my existence, a fake pregnancy, probably more. James is having a complete breakdown and thinks he's still in love with me. And how do you feel about that? I considered the question as I walked, my heels clicking against the sidewalk in a rhythm that reminded me of the wedding, of walking away from my family's cruelty with my head held high. Sad, I said finally. Sad for the girl I used to be, who would have given anything to hear those words. But also free. For the first time in 11 years, I'm completely free of them all. Good, Catherine said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Because Elena's plane lands in 2 hours, and I could use some moral support. Are you nervous? Terrified. But also hopeful, which is more than I've felt in 25 years. Catherine paused. Will you come with me to the airport? I thought about my empty apartment, my quiet life, the careful walls I'd built around my heart. Then I thought about second chances and family, and the possibility that some stories could have happy endings after all. I'll be right there. 3 hours later, I stood in JFK arrivals with Catherine, watching her pace nervously as passengers streamed through the gate. Elena's flight had landed on time, but Catherine had been checking her watch every 30 seconds, smoothing her hair, adjusting her jacket. What if she doesn't recognize me? Catherine asked for the 10th time. What if this was a mistake? What if? There. I pointed toward the gate, where a woman with silver-streaked dark hair and kind eyes was scanning the crowd. She was older, of course, but unmistakably the woman from the photograph Catherine had shown me. Elena's eyes found Catherine's across the crowded terminal, and the years seemed to fall away. They moved toward each other slowly, tentatively, like people approaching a miracle they were afraid might disappear. When they finally stood face to face, Elena reached up and touched Catherine's cheek with trembling fingers. You're real, she whispered. You're really here. I'm sorry, Catherine said, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry I let them take you away from me. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder. Sure. Elena pulled her into a fierce embrace. We're here now. That's what matters. I watched them hold each other. These two women who'd been torn apart by my family's cruelty and had somehow found their way back to each other. It was beautiful and heartbreaking and hopeful all at once. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Lisa, this is Sarah. We need to talk. There are things about our family, about what really happened 11 years ago, that you don't know. Meet me at Mom and Dad's house tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Please.
It's important. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the delete button. After everything that had happened, after all the pain and cruelty, Sarah wanted to talk. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to walk away from the Morrison family drama once and for all. But another part of me, the part that had spent 11 years wondering what if, needed to know what she had to say. I looked up to find Catherine and Elena watching me, their arms still around each other. Everything okay? Catherine asked. Sarah wants to meet tomorrow. Says there are things about what happened 11 years ago that I don't know. Catherine and Elena exchanged a look I couldn't interpret.
What? I asked.
What aren't you telling me? Catherine sighed. There's something else, Lisa. Something I didn't tell you yesterday because I wasn't sure it was my place. What now? The night before you came out to your parents, Sarah called me. She was crying hysterical. She said she'd done something terrible, something that was going to destroy the family. My blood ran cold. What did she do? I don't know. She hung up before she could tell me, and the next day... Catherine shrugged helplessly. The next day, everything fell apart. You came out, your parents threw you out, and I was so focused on my own pain that I never followed up on what Sarah had said. You think she had something to do with what happened to me? I think, Catherine said carefully, that your sister has been carrying a secret for 11 years. And maybe it's time you found out what it is. I looked down at Sarah's message again, reading between the lines. There are things about our family, about what really happened 11 years ago, that you don't know. What if my coming out hadn't been the real reason my parents disowned me? What if there was more to the story, something that had been hidden all these years? I have to go, I said finally. I have to hear what she has to say. Catherine nodded. We'll come with you.
No.
I shook my head. This is something I need to do alone. But Catherine? Yeah. Whatever Sarah tells me tomorrow, whatever secrets come out, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're alive. And I'm glad we found each other again. Catherine smiled, the same warm smile I remembered from childhood. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. As I walked away from them, toward whatever truth was waiting for me at my childhood home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 11 years. Hope. Not for reconciliation with my family, not for a fairy tale ending, but for the simple possibility that the truth, whatever it was, might finally set us all free. The Morrison family had spent 11 years living with lies and secrets and carefully constructed facades. Tomorrow, one way or another, it was all going to come crashing down. And for the first time since I was 21 years old, I was ready for it.